for joining us today, especially so near to the holiday season. We appreciate you sharing your time with us. My name is Milika Zajkovic, and I'm the head of product marketing here at CharityEngine. So today's product showcase is a bit different, as this is our last showcase of the year. We're going to look at some of the bigger, more popular features that we released throughout this year. And so among them are things like event registration, enhancements, volunteer check-in updates, activities management, and activities sync, and so on. But before we begin, I'd just like to remind you that you are welcome to drop questions in the chat, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. If I don't get to your questions during today's session, I'll certainly follow up with you right after. And with that, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to be looking at volunteer check-in capability. You can now allow your volunteers to use QR codes to quickly check them in and automatically record their hours. We also have event management updates. You can use a much more smoother event checkout experience. We also have sponsorship management, which we've launched earlier this year that we'll take a look at again today. And then now there's an ability to capture guest information during the registration process that makes it much more easier to get those guest names without requiring anybody to provide that guest information after the fact. We also have some calendar and activity sync enhancements. So earlier this year, I think it was earlier this year, quite early this year rather, we created an ability for you to sync your CRM tasks with your email calendar so you can stay organized and on track. And then finally, we added NCOA and data enrichment capabilities that you can initiate right from our platform. All right, and let's go ahead and go into the platform. All right, I trust you are seeing my screen. So as I said, we're going to go ahead and get started with our volunteer enhancements. You can now use QR codes to check in volunteers at the time when they show up for their volunteering opportunity. So our volunteer application is right in the events section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on events and go to volunteers. I have three options here: my search and manage, which is my listing screen of all of my volunteers. I can set up different posts. They're essentially your opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and then I can categorize those volunteer posts with these post types. So I'm going to get started here with my search and manage screen. This allows me to see all of my volunteers. All right, so I'm going to expose everybody here. And here I can see my volunteers. I can see what post they're associated with. What is their status? Are they available versus confirmed? If they have log time, I can see that here, or if I have log time for them, I can see that as well. Now, assuming they present this QR code at the beginning, when they show up for their volunteering shift, essentially the experience for me as an admin, it would be I would scan their QR code, and essentially I would just be able to see that one person show up, at which point I can start their shift. Now, if I click Start Shift, it will timestamp my current time as their start time, and I can complete that. And let's say their shift is complete and now they're ready to check out. You can certainly end their shift by hovering over this three-dot menu and end shift. You can also click on Today. So in my case, let's just assume I'm going to click here and shift. Now I want some time to show, so I'm going to make it look like they volunteered for more than a few minutes here. So I'll go ahead and move this to 6 p.m. same day, and I'll go ahead and complete. All right. You can see now time displays as 4 hours and 1 minute. Now, this is one way that you can record volunteering hours, but keep in mind that your volunteers can also self-report their hours, and there's two ways to do that. One is by creating a time entry form, which I'll show you in a moment. The other is you can send them to the constituent portal where they can see the volunteering opportunities for which they've signed up, and they can enter time there as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at both of those options together. Let me just, and just also FYI, if you're wanting to create a volunteer, you can easily do so right from this volunteer listing screen. As most of our screens are organized this way, you have this plus sign in the top right corner. Whether it's creating a transaction, a donation, an event, you're always starting with this plus sign when you're creating something new. So if I was creating a new volunteer, for example, I would simply click there. And I can associate this volunteer with an existing post, in which case I can select what that post is. Now, if I haven't created it, I can certainly do that by clicking on this gear and going to new. If I want to create a new post, I can toggle this off as well and create that post name. So let's say I have a post that is a board member post. Or how about event planner? How's that? Let's say you have a director of event planning who's a volunteer at your organization. So let's say event director. And I'm going to go ahead and keep this as active. That's correct. Now, I can associate this particular new volunteer with any of these types of volunteering posts. Now, I've configured this, if you guys recall, they're configured right here in these post types. That's why I have so many options here. You can certainly add yours, but I'll go ahead and pick one that already exists. Let's see if we can do fundraising event support as my type. I don't need to create a location and I don't need to create a date. I would need to create a date if I was treating this as one-time opportunity, a shift. In which case, I would create a start and end time, which would create a volunteering shift. You can designate the number of people needed and so on. But because I want this to be more open-ended opportunity, say this, event director is going to contribute their hours at different times of the week, different times of the month, and so on. I don't want to create any volunteering shifts per se. And I can associate the contact here. So I assign a contact. So in this case, let's say I've recruited an event director who's who's volunteering for us. So I'm going to go ahead and create. All right, let's say her name is Mary Smith. Okay, all of this looks good. I don't need to create anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and create. All right, so now I have Mary Smith. She is my she is my volunteer for the event director post, and that post type is under fundraising event support. Now all of this looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and save. All right. If I were to record Mary's time on my own, I can certainly do that from here. We will also now see Mary in the volunteer search and manage listing screen. So if I'm looking at our volunteer listing screen, I should be able to see Mary Smith right up top. And there she is, Mary Smith. I can see she's an event director. And I can also, assuming that she's not checking in and out, it's not event related per se, I can always find her here by searching for her name. So Mary Smith, there she is, and I can add time, enter time. And I can enter time, say she's worked on today from 7 a.m. to today at 4 p.m. and so on. Okay. I will need to select my type here. So I will go ahead and select volunteer and save. All right, that looks good. And let's see. And there is my time recording from Mary. She's now at 9 hours. This information is also going to be available on Mary's record. Don't forget. So if we go ahead and look at Mary's contact record, we will be able to see this information on the time tab. So let me show you that. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at those two options I mentioned earlier that you can provide to your volunteers so they can report their volunteer hours on their own. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and look at my time tab here in the record details. If I click on time, right here, I see that Mary has volunteered as an event director on this date, and she's volunteered 9 hours. All right, so we looked at all the various ways we can record volunteering time. We looked at how we can do it from various screens. You can also do it also from this screen. So let's say you're on Mary's record. You can certainly add time here with the plus sign. But let's go ahead and take a look how you can enable your volunteers to do this on their own. So our first option is to create an event entry form. We do have those out of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my online section. And I want to go to web forms. Again, I'm going to start with search and manage screen. All right. And if I'm creating a new event entry form, I'm going to go ahead and click my plus sign here. And these are all of our out-of-the-box forms. You can see I have volunteer time entry form, a volunteer sign-up form. They're different. Sign up allows somebody to sign up for an upcoming opportunity, upcoming shifts that we discussed, right? Time entry form, they just want to record their hours so that at the end of the month or whatever interval, your organization can pull those reports. So this is the one I want. I'm going to go ahead and click that. You can associate this with an event, but in my case, I'm thinking more broadly. I don't want this to be particularly associated with any event. This is just a broad opportunity position rather, and I want to make it, I don't want to make it specific to an event. However, I do want to make it specific for the general post that I created for my event director. So I'm going to go ahead and search event Oops. All right, let me see. I'm not seeing my post here, so I want to make sure I got the name correct. Pardon me, as I check on the other screen. Open the name tab. Give me a moment. So the event post that I created. Let's go ahead and take a look at my volunteers and my posts. All right, so I do have my event director here. I should be able to see it populating when I'm creating this form. I'm wondering if it's because the need to specify time. So give me one more shot of this, and then we're going to see if this works. One moment. Event. All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and open up that post here, and I'm going to see if I can assign a particular date and time to see if that changes things. All right. So in this case, let's say that this particular post had an end time or a start time and an end time. So we're going to say that it was an 8 a.m. to same day 8 p.m. or 5 p.m. How's that? All right, let me go ahead and save this. All right. Now let me also see if associating it with an event makes a difference. I wasn't aware that this was required to use it in the form, but maybe I was wrong. So bear with me a moment here. All right, so let's just try this again. I'm going to go ahead and sign up for create a volunteer sign up form. And let's go ahead and try to find that event planner post now. And perhaps I can refresh to just allow the system to recache. All right. So let's try this again. And we have our drop down here. Event director. There we go. We do have that here. All right. So it looks like I was able to create my time entry form, but I had to associate a particular time and shift. Now, what I wanted to do, what I initially intended to do, was create more of a broad entry, which I'm pretty sure is a capability that we can do. I may just need to check a couple of things and circle back on that. But the takeaway for me is that this is one way that a volunteer can report their hours for a specific shift. And I just want to make sure one more time if I can, in fact, do it without specifying the shift. So bear with me here. We go under events, or rather volunteers. All right, and we have our event director post. All right, and let me remove that. Save. All right, so I did remove that time shift, but I did leave the event. Now, keep in mind, even if the event is technically required, if that's what I see here, you can create, say, a fake event for this purpose that is not a real event, if that is something that we're required to do. So let's just go ahead and see if my event form can be now configured with this post without assigning a shift to it. So I'm going to go again to my event. I accidentally clicked on options. Bear with me. Here we go. So I'm going back to my volunteers. I'm going to go to online and web forms and search and manage. I'm going to open up that form that I just created. Or perhaps I can create a new form. Here we go. So I'm going to create my new form. Volunteer sign up form. And let's see if my event post is showing up here. Event director. Yep, it is. All right. So my mistake, I apologize. So it looks like you do have to, in this case, associate with a particular event. But again, if you're looking to just bypass that, I would just create a random event that you will not certainly advertise or promote. It's just something that's going to exist in the system to enable you to create a more general form for volunteer sign up. That does not have to be associated with a specific shift. This is really good if you have, as I said, like a standing individual who continuously volunteers on one position, and it just doesn't make sense to create multiple shifts for them, because they might be coming in and out throughout the year. All right, one thing that I get often asked is about how do I generate a report of the volunteered hours? There's a couple ways to do that. One way that I like to do it, is easiest for me, is by going to my people section. And right here under projects and time, we have track time option. So I'm going to go ahead and click track time. And so this is where I can see all of my volunteer time records, right? And right up here in this filter, I can denote what is the interval that I may be looking at. So for example, if I wanted to pull a report of everybody that has volunteered this past month, I can certainly do that. I can say anybody who started or volunteered from December 1st to end of this month, assuming that's where we are. We can apply, and I will generate my list of folks. And as always, this list is downloadable for export right here. You can also save it in your report builder by saying something like December volunteer hours. I can denote which fields I want in my report and then click save. Upon saving, that report will always be available here, or as well as in my report library in the report sections. All right. A couple more things regarding volunteers. We had some questions previously from clients around communicating with volunteers about their upcoming posts or upcoming volunteer opportunities. One of the easiest ways you can do that is right from our listing screen. So if you go to our events, volunteers, we're back at search and manage. You can easily filter this screen by the upcoming posts. So now we're kind of shifting our thinking here. We're thinking of the post in this case as a specific shift. So let's say you have a post for tomorrow. It's a park cleanup day, and you're wanting to remind folks about the upcoming opportunity they've signed up for. So in this case, what I would do, I would go to my volunteers listing screen. I would expose my filters here, and I would select my post type. So let's say here, I'm going to find any of these, hoping I can see some data. All right. So assuming you get a list of however 10, 15 volunteers that have signed up for that opportunity, you can then initiate a communication right from the screen by using this double gear action. So anybody that's now on this screen will get this communication. I can click here. Any of these options. You can send an email. You can send them an SMS blast, assuming that SMS is part of your subscription package. You can also enroll them in a series. So in my case, I'm going to send them an email. And let's just say my subject line is "Don't forget about tomorrow." And then I'm going to go ahead and next. And so here is where I can include my body of my message. And I can also include various tokens that are specific to their volunteering opportunity. So volunteer location name, volunteer post description, volunteer post name. So you can say literally, "Thank you for registering to volunteer post name. We look forward to seeing you at time such and such." Whatever tokens that you select here in this screen. So let's say we choose one of these. So volunteer contact name. Let's insert that. Let's insert just a couple up here for demo purposes. And I want to do post name, right? That's usually what people want. Whatever this message is, I can also save this so that I can use it in a future template. So the way to do that, I would just copy these, right? This, I'm going to press copy, right? Copy. And I can always create a template by clicking right here and create. And this is going to be a user message. So right here, I can paste that. Now keep in mind, user messages, user message types of template are the ones that appear as drop downs in those communications that are initiated from listing screens. However, here, because the system does not know which listing screen you're going to be on, we don't have tokens here. But you can, as you just saw, you can easily copy the tokens from the prior screen and create a template you can always use in the future. Just a little trick, I think, that will be helpful for many of you as you leverage those communication capabilities right from the listing screen. All right. So I believe that covers it for our volunteer functionality. I'm going to go ahead and move to our event management updates that we released throughout the year. There have been quite a few. You can now enjoy a smoother event checkout experience, improved sponsor management, as well as the ability to capture your guest information during registration. So let's take a look at some of those new features. I'm going to go ahead to my events application, and let's start with our event search and manage screen. I'll first show you our sponsorship capabilities that we released, I believe it was mid-year. So let's go ahead and open one of our events. So in this case, I have CharityEngine Summer Gala. I'm going to go ahead and manage this event. All right, so it looks like I have CharityEngine Summer Gala. This is an event that is denoted as dinner type gala. I have my fundraising goal. All looks good here. Now, the new capability that was released mid-year is around sponsorship. You can now manage and add, your sponsors right here in the event details screen under the sponsorship tab. So if you are if you have multiple sponsors for your events, I would definitely recommend using this feature to allow you to keep track of everybody in different ways they may be contributing to your event. When you're adding a new sponsor, you can click Add New, and there's two types of event sponsors that you can consider adding. The first is default. Now, default for us is simply somebody who has pledged and said, I will give X amount of money for this event, and I will do so by such and such date. Essentially, it's kind of like an event pledge, if you will, right? And so for that, you would simply create the sponsor. So let's say in this case, I have my Corner Bakery is my default sponsor here, and they have said they will give me $5,000 for my event. And I can say they have said they will give me this money by end of this year, and I can assign a contact. So let's say I know that the owner of Corner Bakery in my neighborhood is Mark Jones. I can certainly add him as a record here. I can certainly add his email and so on, but just for simplicity's sake, I'll create this as such. All right, so that looks good. You can see here it's already associated with my event. I'm going to go ahead and save. All right, so now I have Corner Bakery as a sponsor to my event. I'm going to go back to my event details screen. I should be able to see Corner Bakery right in my sponsorship tab, your sponsors tab. There it is. And I see I have Mark Jones, Corner Bakery. I see that he's pledged $5,000. This is a default sponsor type, and I see that I have 0 collected. I can certainly go to the pledge to manage the pledge, and I can also send Mark a payment link whenever the time is right, or whenever we're approaching the due date for his pledge that will allow him to fulfill that pledge. The second type of sponsor that you can use is a matching sponsor. Some sponsors for your events are willing to match any donation that you get throughout your event. And what's nice about it is that the system will automatically match, will recognize anytime there's a donation that's associated with the event. It will automatically connect it to the matching sponsor, create a record of it. So it's very easy at the end to provide that matching sponsor a proof, if you will, of all the donations you've received and how much they should be matching. So let's say in this case, we have another sponsor. It could be Target. Our local Target is sponsoring our event. They've said that they will match our event our event fundraising up to $5,000. And we can also include a date. And I can assign, again, create or assign my contact. In this case, I'll say Lisa Smith. All right. And I will save this as well. All right, so now we have a target as a matching sponsor for my CharityEngine Summer Gala. Let's go back to our event listing screen, or pardon me, event details screen. And we now have our fourth sponsor. So you can see this is a gift matching sponsor. And again, since we've just created this, there are no matched funds. As donations for this event begin to come in, you're going to be able to see the status changing here. So in this case, you can see that Brie Larson is also a matching gift sponsor, and she is committed to matching up to $2,000. Now, if I hover over here, I can see that we've already raised $500, which we know that is 25% of way towards the 2,000 goal that Brie has committed to. If I wanted to drill down and see who those folks are, I can certainly do that. So if I open that in a new window, let's just take a look at how that looks. All right, you can see here we have our donor, Neha Gill. She has contributed 500. Therefore, Brie Larson is matching that at 500 as well. Once the event concludes, you can easily send your sponsor a payment link right from this drop-down option here. All right. So that is our event sponsorship capability. I also want to show you the event checkout capability that we introduced a few months ago. For that, we're going to go to our event registrations. So anytime somebody registers for an event, we're going to be able to see that right here under events registration. This is our registration listing screen. This is a powerful screen where you can do a lot. So let's go ahead and take a look at it together. Now, right here under my event, I've already filtered it to show only those that registered for this summer gala event that I'm currently managing. I see all of my registrants here, which is great. So a couple of things here. Let's assume that we're now at the front desk of the event. Folks are coming in, and I'd like to check them in using their QR code, similar to our other volunteer check-in capability. If I'm scanning their QR code, that would allow this screen to surface up only their registration so that I can easily find them. And then anybody who's listed as pending, I know that I haven't checked in. So in this case, let's assume that Alice Zakovic has showed up. I would scan her badge. This would be my experience. I see that she's okay. Alice is registered. If I click pending, I would be checking her in. If that's confusing for you, you can always see the check-in option here. So let's see, we check in Alice. We now have the ability to collect her credit card information at the front door. This is not something you have to do, but this is something that may make sense if, say, you have also an auction as part of your event. In this case, this particular event does have auction associated with it, and I'll show you how that looks like. And because of that, I'm able to indicate, yes, Alice is an auction participant, and I do want to have her credit card in file. This is the card she's used to register for the event. If at the door, Alice is saying, no, I do not want this card, I want another card, you can certainly toggle to no and enter that other card. You can also select how Alice wishes to receive bid notices during the event, and you can either do phone or SMS. All right, we're going to go ahead and check in Alice. And let's go ahead and take a look at some examples where I can demonstrate how we can check someone out. So let me see here. I believe I've already created some records that do have a balance. All right, let me see here. So it looks like we have here Mr. Jacob. He has, looks like there's a balance associated with his account. Or even a better example actually here. Well, let's do both. So notice a couple of things. I'm particularly showing you this example and this example. They're both good for various reasons. So in case of Jacob, he has a 150 balance as a result of, looks like, getting some merchandise at the event. In the case of John Coogan, he has a balance of $100 as a result of CharityEngine branded sticky notes, which is an auction item. Okay, so let's say we were going to check out Jacob. We can hover over his three-dot ellipses here and click checkout. I have a couple of options available here. I can choose not to collect payment now. I can collect payment now, or I can pay online, which would allow me to send an email automatically to Jake so I can collect that payment. If the payment is a result of a auction item that was won during this particular event, it will show up right here under the ticket column. And I can also check him out by simply managing his registration. Now, because he has won that item, I'm going to see that there is an auction tab in his registration, and I'm going to be able to process right from this screen. So here we have auction. I can see he has won some sticky notes. I can see the amount. And so if I'm ready to process his payment because he's a winner, all I would have to do is hover over this three-dot menu, process payment. And you can see here it automatically is pulling that credit card on file that we have, which makes it super easy to process. And then I would just simply click this button. All right. And the last feature as it relates to event management updates that we released throughout the year that I'd like to highlight is our ability to capture guest information during registration. So let's go ahead and take a look at that capability, which we can see in our online forms. So I'm going to go to online web forms, and we're going to be creating a simple event form together. All right, I'm going to click my plus sign here and select event sign up. All right, here's my event form. As always, I can choose to create a new event or select an existing event that I've set up. In my case, I'll go ahead and select my existing event. Because I've already set up my tickets, they're automatically being pulled in here. Now, if I wanted to add more tickets, I could certainly do that, but I'm going to leave this as is for now. I can choose whether or not I want my form to ask for an additional donation or enable session selection. I'm going to keep this simple, and I'll leave session selection as no. And let's go ahead and create our form. All right, now when I created those tickets, I was able to denote whether or not those tickets had multiple seats. So how many seats did each ticket get? Because I did that, I now have a form that allows anybody who's selecting one of these tickets to be able to add their guests' names as they're registering. So in this case, if I add a quantity 1 for my silver sponsor ticket, I see an option to add my guest name. And I can add as many guests as that particular ticket is configured for. So in this case, this ticket comes with 5 seats, which is what I've specified when I was creating that ticket. Now, this functionality is nice because it allows your registrants to provide their guest information up front. A lot of times if they're bringing family members, they already know it. In some situations when you might be selling a table of tickets to a sponsor who may not know who's coming, it makes sense to simply, after the fact, send them to the donor portal so they can provide that after the fact. Depending on the kind of event you have, different strategies might work better for you. If for whatever reason you don't want this functionality to be on, you can easily disable that, and I'll show you where you can do that. Right under where you are managing your form, in the event tab right here, so this is our form details screen, in the event tab, we have this toggle that says show add guests. If you disable this, that ability to add guests will not be available if that is something you're interested in doing. All right. So we talked about event checkout, sponsorship management, as well as our ability to capture guest information during event registration. We're going to go ahead and move to our next feature around calendar and activity sync. If you are looking to automatically sync your CRM tasks with your email calendar to stay organized and on track, you can certainly do that. This was a feature we also released in earlier part of the year. Just as an FYI and a refresher for everybody, if you're not already using CharityEngine activities, you have access to the activities both on the welcome screen as well as the people application. So on our welcome screen, our activity panel is right here. And actually, you don't need to go anywhere else. You can easily create a new activity, say a phone call. You can create a title for a date. You can assign yourself as a participant, or pardon me, it's already assigned to you, but you can assign a participant. Who are you calling, for example? So in this case, let's say I wanted to assign it to all right. Now I have a participant. You select it. And I can also choose to send myself reminders that as the activity date approaches, I will get alerts in my inbox, my email inbox, to remind me that this is something I have to do. And I can always add notes about what I need to accomplish for this particular activity. So I will go ahead and create, and you can see now I have that new activity listed here. It looks like I did not adjust the time as it is due right now, but I can certainly adjust that. So if I click on new activity, and I can always adjust the due date to be sometime in the future. All right, let's go back to my home screen. Just wanted to provide a refresher. I know a lot of newer users are here today, and so who may not be familiar with the channel. Enhancements. How do you sync your activities with your calendar? So you can also see activities in the entire listing screen of all your activities. When you go to people, activities, and then you have three options here. One is sync calendar, which we're going to take a look at. Another one is calendar, and then you have your activities. Calendar is simply a calendar view of any emails that you have going out, any activities that you've signed up to do or assigned to someone else, your events, and so on. Activities is your listing screen where you can see both your activities or all. You can filter by dates, by status, and so on. But let's go ahead and sync my calendar. I'm going to go to my people activities sync calendar option. If this is not enabled for you already, it's a simple toggle to enabled. Once this is enabled, be sure to refresh your screen and you will see a link that's generated. This is your iCalendar link, and this is the only thing you will need to sync your calendar. You can choose to sync just your activities or choose to sync your activities and your events. In my case, I'm not gonna sync my events. I'll just stick to my activities. So I'm gonna copy this link. And so where you input this depends on which email client your organization uses, whether you're on Outlook, Gmail, and so on. I can certainly show you the example of my Outlook calendar. So I'll go ahead and share my Outlook here. Now I'm going to click on my calendar here. You'll see I have an option to add from internet, and I can paste in that link right here. All right. Now, as a result, I'm going to have a new calendar appear that will allow me to see those additional activities. All right, so easy enough, very simple process. Now, the place where you might paste that calendar link for, say, Gmail or Outlook, might be a little different, but essentially you can easily find that in any of the instructions online if you're having trouble locating it for Gmail, for example. And you can always reach out to us for assistance as well. All right, and this brings us to our last feature for today, which is around NCOA and data enrichment. About mid-year, we released an in-house capability to update your records with NCOA, deceased flags, mobile appends, dedupes, and so on. I know for some portion of our clients, this is an out-of-the-box capability that we do automatically for a certain number of records. For others, it is based on the volume and a particular segment of records they're wanting to update. Not everybody's interested in updating their entire database, primarily because they may not be, for example, for NCOA, they're not mailing everybody, so they're not looking to update everything. But if this is something you're interested in, you can certainly initiate the process from our application. This capability is available, or you can activate this capability right from our automation. And if you go to General, over Automation, General, Activate Data Enrichment. So if I click on my Activate Data Enrichment, I can certainly initiate a process here that will allow me to engage our CharityEngine's team to update my records. So in this case, you can choose any of these services. In this case, let's say I'm choosing NCOA. I can say I want to enrich my entire database or a particular segment. Now, if you are wanting to do a special particular segment, you can certainly include some instructions here. A lot of times it will be dependent upon maybe a list or a query that you already created that you want to enrich. You can also specify how often you want the service to be performed and any additional instructions. Once you continue and submit the request, you will usually hear from our team within 2 days max, providing you input on whether or not this is something that's covered by your account, your subscription plan, or if there is a charge, and if so, what would be the charge. And this is provided to you before you make a decision to move forward. So just keep that in mind, especially as this end of year wraps up. And you may be looking at how some of the ways that you can streamline your operations and fundraising segmentation capabilities in the next year and clean up your database. Know that these options here are available for you. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining our product showcase today and for your feedback throughout the year. I appreciate all of our clients who have submitted feedback either through our in-app feedback channel, which is right here, or for those of you that have reached out to me personally to engage in conversations about CharityEngine and how you're leveraging the platform for your organization. I look forward to seeing you next year, and I hope you have a lovely holiday season with your loved ones. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.